Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Commodity TV and the new edition of our online virtual interview series. And we want to talk for an update today with OceanaGold. And Sam Pazuki is here with us, the Senior Vice President, Strategy and Corporate Development. Hey, Sam, good morning to Toronto. How are you?
Not too bad, Johan. How are you?
Perfect. Thank you very much. A great day here in Switzerland. And finally, gold, silver, and platinum and palladium are rising, even copper today. That's how we want it. But yeah, first of all, congratulations to you guys, because Didipio got the FTAA renewed. And I think this was something we were waiting for a good 2 years, right?
Yeah, no, that's right. That's right. It's been a couple of years, but fantastic news. It's one of the best gold and copper operations on the planet, and we're very happy to have that back into the portfolio.
Super. So for how long have you got that now renewed again? It's like, is it like 25 years again?
Yes, that's right. It's a 25-year FTA renewal, and it was effective on the day that it expired. So it's a couple of years into that. So June 19th, I think, 2019, the starting point, but 25 years. And more importantly, allows us to restart operations, hire back the workforce that we unfortunately had to lay off last year in October and November, be able to transport concentrate, which we had produced prior to being shut down. And I'm happy to report that we've started the shipments already. So
wow.
concentrate's on its way to the port. And just, yeah, a fantastic outcome. It's one of the most socially responsible gold, copper, or any mining operations in the Philippines. I would even dare say globally. So it's great to have that back.
Super. So when you say you are transporting concentrate already to the port, what quantities we are talking about? Meaning, yeah, do you receive then already like a cash flow, right?
Yeah, that's right. So we, as I mentioned, we produced this product prior to being shut down in 2019. So we had built up the stockpile. We had also produced some doré bars, which we were approved to export and sell last year in 2020. But the copper concentrate, we didn't receive the approval to transport that until the FTAA was renewed. So with the renewal, we did receive the transport permit, which is just a formality of what we need from the regulator to be able to export any product that we produce from the Philippines. So what we're looking at in terms of the concentrate that we had produced, which again, as I said, we started to transport to the port. It's just under 19,000 ounces of gold and around 3,600 tons of copper.
So
that's right. That's the quantity that we've produced.
Okay.
Using metal prices, today's metal prices, we're looking at net proceeds in terms of cash flow back to OceanaGold shareholders of anywhere between $55 and $60 million once all the concentrate is out.
That I would say that is a beautiful amount of money, to be honest, because what I read in your press release that no numbers of Didipio are figured in right now in your projections. So that would be like the positive surprise here, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. We've already reported it as gold and copper produced back in 2019, but they'll be reported as cash. So you'll see that reported in the cash flow statements. Basically, they've been assets sitting on the balance sheet that will hit the P&L now. So from a cash flow perspective, it's a fantastic outcome. It was challenging and difficult for all of us that we were shut down for 2 years at the operation, but it's good to have it back. And we have it back when metal prices are doing pretty strongly for both gold and particularly for copper. I mean, this product that we produced 2 years ago, were a much lower commodity pricing.
Absolutely, and I think we both agree, and most of our viewers, that copper is the metal and the place to be these days with a European new Green Deal and the US Green Deal with Joe Biden. So copper is the metal to wire things, to do the infrastructure and the e-mobility and the charging environment. That is really for sure, and I don't see falling copper prices. I see them even more rising, as for example Glencore and Trafigura also stated in the latest interviews to $15,000 to $20,000 a ton. So that would be very good for you guys also, and for your shareholders, of one I'm rich also, of course, I should say that in advance here. So that looks all fantastic. Do you think you can hold the perspective with 12 months to be really back into production then in the Philippines?
I think that's a point of confusion, I think, with the market. So we will start producing gold and copper the minute the processing plant begins operations. So it's not that we will have no production for 12 months. It's just it's going to take us 12 months to get up to full capacity from an underground mining perspective. The underground, basically, we have a process plant that can probably do more than 3.5 million tons per year. But that's what we're permitted to process, is 3.5 million tons of ore each year. The underground, its full ramp-up rate is 1.6 million tons per year. And before we were shut down, we were at a rate of 1.5 million tons per year. So we still weren't yet fully ramped up at the underground when we were shut down in 2019. So we've given ourselves 12 months to be able to get to that 1.6 million tons of ore mined from the underground each year. So hopefully we can do that sooner. I mean, the critical path really would be just the employment or recruitment of the workforce, and then the training of them to be able to start mining again and then ramp things up. But from a processing perspective, we do expect that will start happening later this year. And then once we start processing, then we will be able to start feeding the mill with stockpiles that we have on surface. And right now we have about 19 million tons of ore that's stockpiled on the surface. So the minute we start processing, we will have production. And then as the underground ramps up, it'll start supplementing the process plant with the higher grade feed from underground.
Fantastic. And I think also your life of mine projections, they should also fulfill the 25 years for Didipio.
That's right. That's
yeah,
right.
super. Fantastic. So that would mean 2022 might be a fantastic year then already, because as you said, you will do more and more revenues from the Philippines, which were not included in the projections, of course. Would that mean also that probably the consolidated AISC for the group will move down then?
Absolutely, absolutely. So we haven't provided formal guidance yet for even this year with respect to the Philippines and what its contribution will be this year. We're working through as quickly as possible in terms of the logistics to get operations underway. We're making very good progress with recruitment. We're making very good progress on training. As I mentioned, the concentrate is already on its way to the port. It'll take 5 to 6 weeks to get that concentrate fully away from the site and at the port. And once it arrives at the port is when we actually see payment for it. So that's progressing quite nicely. And then we have to do some maintenance work on the process plant. We have to do some testing and recommissioning of it. And then, as I mentioned, begin processing of stockpiles. All the while, we are, again, recruiting and training for underground mining as well. So that's on track, and we hope to come out with some information in terms of what Didipio's contribution will be for this year. And we're also hoping to provide an update at some point on what Didipio's contribution will be for next year. But Didipio is one of the lowest cost gold mines globally. With it running full tilt, full operations, we mentioned it's 10,000 ounces of gold and 1,000 tons of copper a month. So on an annualized basis, you're looking at 120,000 ounces of gold and 12,000 tons of copper per year. And the AISC, again, we report a byproduct, so it is dependent on the copper credits. But based on today's metal prices, I mean, we'd be looking at an AISC for Didipio in sort of the circa $500 an ounce range, which would then drive the consolidated AISC lower than where we've been the last 2 years. It is a fantastic operations from many different respects, and from a financial and operations perspective, it does transform the company, and we do become a low cost producer again.
Fantastic. Cost is also one thing because we just saw your news release about New Zealand. Waihi Macras is going, or let's say New Zealand is going again into a lockdown here with your mines there. I think by now for just 1 week. So hopefully this will not be like months now. But I think this will, let's say if it's 1 or 2 weeks, this would not affects heavily your operations there and your results, right?
Yeah, we'll have to see how long the lockdown takes place. Last year, New Zealand did lock down early for 5 weeks, but those measures they took put them in a very good position where life was pretty much normal and our operations were unaffected after the lockdown expired. So this one, it's a result of one case that was a traveler from Australia. As you've seen, I think on the news, you've seen Australia struggling with COVID and are in various lockdowns. So unfortunately, that's made its way to New Zealand as well. And the government does a very good job in terms of testing and tracing. And they want to lock things down to be able to do all the contact tracing and testing they need to really contain the spread of this virus. So the entire country is in lockdown until the end of this week. The government will make an announcement later this week to see whether they're going to extend the lockdown for the country or for certain pockets of it. But right now, the cases are mounting, but they seem to be isolated or clustered in Auckland, and there's a couple cases in Wellington. So we are about 2 hours south of Auckland at Waihi, and Macraes is on the South Island, and it's well down in the south there, wells away from Auckland and Wellington. We are processing still at Macraes, so we do continue to have production, albeit on a limited basis while we're in this lockdown period. But we'll have to wait to see how long this lockdown will last and what the impact could be to both.
Yeah, well. Okay, this is in the hands of the government now, that's for sure. I think you also had some good advanced organic growth here with your projects, like I think Martha Underground looks quite good. So you did over 5,210 meters of underground development. And also you have successfully replaced the SAG mill, right? So is this already processing, or are things working the way you want them?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Waihi went through that period, that lull period where production was somewhat muted as we were ramping things up at Martha Underground and doing all the upgrade work that we needed to do with the process plant. So that process plant was shut down in Q2 and then restarted in, I guess, closer to the end of June. We don't expect to shut down the process plant for technical reasons going forward. Obviously, we're shut down because of COVID. But things are ramping up quite nicely at Martha Underground. There's still more ramp up to go there because the full production run rate at Martha Underground is 90 to 100,000 ounces a year. This year, our guidance for Waihi was 35 to 45,000 ounces a year. With the first half of the year basically completed, we expected a much stronger second half from Waihi, with things progressively ramping up as the year progresses. So that's still the plan. We still continue to expect further ramp up of operations through this year and into next year as we develop more in the underground and bring on more stopes and obviously increase production levels. And that's from Martha Underground. Obviously, we've been doing a lot of other work more regionally at WKP to advance that into the formal permitting process. And doing exploration work, design work, all the engineering work that's required to get it into, I guess, the permit process. But then also, obviously, we're looking long term and looking to eventually bring WKP into production.
Okay, super. That would be also a nice boost, of course. And I think this is also for your, let's say, 4-5 year guidance you have brought out to become a plus 500,000 ounce producer. Very important, right?
Yeah, I mean, that guidance, the 5-year outlook that we had published earlier this year excluded Didipio. Didipio is on top of that. But it also excluded WKP because WKP currently is scheduled to come into production in 2026. So it fell just short of that 5-year plan. From the PEA that we published last year for Waihi, I mean, WKP is a game-changing asset. It has the potential to add significant high margin production to Oceana. It would transform Waihi, I dare say, to being our best operation in the portfolio. Assuming that everything works out from an exploration perspective, engineering, and obviously permitting, we expect WKP's contribution to be quite significant to Waihi, where Waihi becomes a circa 250, 300,000 ounce a year producer at very competitive AISC. And again, very transformational for Oceana. But it will take us some time, take us some effort to get to that point. But it's well worth the wait from our perspective.
Fantastic. Then let's move to the US, to the Haile operation. And I think you had a very strong first half performance in Haile. But it looks a bit like that you had higher mining costs. You capitalized some pre-stripping also, which I think is quite fair to do so. But you had also higher mining costs than expect. Can you give us a bit of an idea what's going on there? Is all fine? Are you on track?
Yeah, I mean, Haile, we came out with the release, I guess, a month ago or so, that there's still some optimization work that we need to go through. I mean, costs are still higher than where we expected them to be. We're still spending quite a bit of capital to expand the operation. And I'd say that, from a near-term perspective, i.e. this year, we expect that we'll achieve our guidance for Haile. So what we published to the market, and we lifted the bottom range of the guidance for Haile a month ago as well too. So we expect it will do as expected this year. We do need to make some changes to how we've been approaching mining, how we approach processing, and that's part of the optimization work that's been underway now for, I'd say, about a quarter. We've got a new executive general manager, David Landano, who was the general manager at Detour Gold. He's fantastic. He's an operator. He has already made some, I'd say, some value enhancing changes to the operation to really, we look at things from a long-term perspective, and he's making changes along with the technical working team to really drive value for Haile. So while we'll meet our near-term forecasts, we do have to go through this process of optimizing the operation. So I think there might be some medium-term pain before there is that long-term gain. Because we want to, again, drive the value at Haile, deliver what we thought we were purchasing when we purchased it in 2015, and really take it into the next step. I've been with this company for a number of years. I've seen Haile from the beginning. I think it's a good asset. I just think we need to make some changes there. And I've got the confidence in David, his team, the technical working team, as well as the new board members who formed a technical committee that's going to be overseeing this work that we're doing. Haile, it's a fantastic, jurisdiction, and there's a lot of, highly profitable ounces there, and we just have to look at what's the most optimal way to really drive value there.
Absolutely. Question: what do you think to drive AISC, let's say, below the $1,000? Do you think, first of all, it is achievable? Secondly, what might be a time idea? I know it's a forward-looking statement and it's hypothetical, so I don't want to nail you exactly on the year, but do you think within your growth strategy you have, and now Didipio on track with like $500 to $600 AISC, then with Marley Underground, WKP, what you all described, it sounds to me a little bit like, maybe the next 2 years, as you said, a bit more pain, but then we have a wonderful future.
Well, I can probably say with some assurances that our AISC will be lower than where it's been this year, and that's really Didipio driving it lower. But also, as you mentioned, Waihi, we expect as things ramp up, costs will also be driven much lower as well too. I mean, this is a transitional year for Waihi, so we do expect that costs will be lower. We'll see where Haile ends up from a cost perspective, but that's the ultimate objective here. It's not how many ounces of gold that we can produce. It's to maximize cash flow. It's to maximize profitability. It's to drive returns for shareholders. And
dividends.
No, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, that has to be part of the any return to shareholders should be part of the strategy. I know the board is focused on again driving value for shareholders, and that's part of that long-term story as well too, is to provide returns back to shareholders.
Yeah.
And you do that not from maximizing gold ounces, because you can go out today, do an acquisition to bring on production where you're basically spending $1 to get $1. And frankly speaking, I mean, we were kind of doing that with Haile, and that's why things had to stop there, and that's why we're looking at optimizing, so that we are getting a significantly risk-adjusted return on that dollar that we're spending at each of the operations.
Fantastic.
That is the focus.
Absolutely. No, because I think you cannot control the gold price, but you can look after your costs.
Absolutely, absolutely. We're price takers. We have no say. Even the largest gold companies don't have a say in terms of the commodity price. So you can only control what you can control, and as you mentioned, it's cost, it's operational efficiencies, it's capital allocation, and these are the things that we need to continue to be focused on to again drive to maximize profitability and drive strong returns for shareholders.
Yeah, exactly. Last question. What is the financial situation these days with the company? Let's say, what is debt? I think you have still $50 million in an undrawn facility. What is cash in the bank? Meaning, are you sound and safe?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Especially with the concentrate that we had talked about in the onset of this interview. We exited the second quarter with $92 million of cash. We had $50 million undrawn from the revolving credit facility. But we announced that we had put in another facility, another revolver of $30 million, which is undrawn as well. So as of the second quarter, we basically had $170 million in total liquidity, $200 million in debt from the facility, from the $250 million debt facility that we had previously, and about $100 million from equipment leases. Now, add to that the circa $55 to $60 million from the sale of the concentrate, which I said is ongoing and will take around 5 to 6 weeks to complete, and then cash flows from operations will continue.
Fantastic. So things look good, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not without risk, and there's a lot more work we have to do. We got to continue to roll up our sleeves. We can never, be content with where we are. We always have to strive to be better. We have to continuously manage the risks associated with COVID. I mean, unfortunately, we're seeing globally that case count is on the rise. Obviously, New Zealand is experiencing it as well. We need to manage that risk. We've seen increases in COVID cases in the US, and obviously we've got an operation there. So we need to continue to manage that risk. Same with the Philippines, we have to continue to manage that risk. But I don't think the market has woken up to the fact that we've got one of our best operations back in the portfolio. I mean, the Philippines, the Didipio operation is truly world-class. It's an ATM, and we have to do a lot of work still to get it back up and running and ramp it up, etc. But we're a better company today than we were a month ago when it was still shut down. And I think there's a delayed reaction right now with the market. And I'm feeling pretty good with the fact that Didipio is back in the portfolio.
Oh, yes, me too. And as I'm a shareholder of the company, I have to emphasize that again. I'm really happy to be so. And I think definitely your stock price is way too cheap. But I have a good feeling that this might correct over the next 12 to 18 months to the north, of course.
Yeah. But we're all long-term shareholders, and we do need to think long-term. I do think there's some low-hanging fruit in the short term, but every decision we make is really so that we're driving shareholder value for the long term. And I've already outlined what that means in terms of maximizing profitability, maximizing returns, and cash flows.
Super, fantastic, Sam. Thank you very much for this, quite long update, but I think it was really necessary, and things are looking really good. And I would say, please move on with the great work, and I look forward already to the second half here, and to the third and the fourth quarter, of course. Then, thank you very much, Sam.
Oh, thank you, Johan. It was good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. Thank you. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, that was Sam Pazuki, the Senior Vice President, Strategy and Corporate Development of OceanaGold. And you heard it, a mid-tier gold producer, very profitable. Yeah, falling costs are one of the targets they really want to achieve, that's for sure. But the most important thing is really that Didipio in the Philippines is back online and will be brought back online, and things are moving good, and they will already receive some 50 to 60 million dollars from the sale of concentrates and also the ray bars. But also New Zealand looks quite good despite being in a lockdown this week, and maybe also next week we will see that, but things are looking really well. Haile is going under optimization, but this will also be done very positively for the company. Company is well cashed up, has enough firepower for credit facilities to look after things and to do the organic growth. I would suggest you have a very close look onto that fantastic company, which I think is heavily undervalued. So please do so. Thanks for watching us, and bye-bye from Switzerland.